502 late night edition. This is your boy Raashaan Myers coming to you, talking about Obinna Ekezie Jr. makes the commitment to the University of Louisville. Just a huge, huge commitment for Pat Kelsey and Louisville men's basketball. I think that Louisville has unbelievably found a way to go above and beyond pretty much everybody's expectations in terms of the high-end level of this team, this recruiting class, just everything. Like, when I look at what Pat Kelsey and Louisville was able to accomplish, one of the most interesting things about Coach Kelsey has been that it seems like whoever he's focused on, whether it be year one with Chucky Hepburn and Terrence Edwards Jr., you look at year two, he made the focus, Adrian Woolley, Isaac McNeely, Ryan Conwell. This year, he makes the focus with, Jackson Shelstad, Flory Badunga, Carter Knox, on and on, of course, the Okena Ekezie Jr. It seems like he's been able to get the guys that he's wanted, and that's been maybe the most shocking and interesting thing about Coach Kelsey coming from mid-major to high major. It's just been the simple fact that he's been able to find and sell Louisville basketball to the players that he's identified. One of the things that I was super, I don't want to say critical, but one of the things where I thought there was a lot of room for improvement, and I asked as much when Coach Kelsey, when I would meet with him, whether it be in settings with the media for post-game press conferences, whether it was just discussing things on Wake Up 502 or Breakdown 502, was just the simple fact that anytime I would discuss the fact that Louisville's big issue, whether you look at year one with the losses to Ole Miss, with the losses to Tennessee, the tournament loss to Creighton, when you look at year two, the loss to Tennessee, the loss to Arkansas, the loss to Michigan State in the tournament, the one thing Louisville has dominated teams that they could compete with size-wise, teams that they were more talented than. Louisville won those games at a plus 90% clip. The one spot where Louisville continued to struggle and have issues, honestly, was pretty much just, when you were looking at trying to beat teams that were bigger and more athletic, like that really seemed to be the only spot where Louisville had an issue. And just the simple fact that they were able to be so consistent in the way in which they handled their business against the teams that they could compete with athletically, gives you a lot of hope moving forward, right? Is because, the one spot where they had that issue was just the simple fact that they just could not compete with these teams athletically. And I think that when you're bigger, stronger, faster, it just gives you a much bigger opportunity for success, right? So, you look at Louisville and the fact that they lost to you lose that game or you beat Miami the first time in Coral Gables in the regular season. Then, of course, you come back, you lose to Miami in the ACC tournament. And it really just comes down to the fact that Miami just had a bigger opportunity for success because they just were bigger and stronger. They could get to the rim. They could get layups. They could get offensive rebounds. They were just more physical and tough at the rim. And that made, honestly, the difference. It made all the difference in the world. And I think that Louisville now has the competitiveness. I mean, if you look at the front courts, let's just break this down. Year one, who's your front court? Yeah, Javon Hadley, Noah Waterman, James Scott. Okay, that's your front court. Year two, your front court is Isaac McNeely, Javon Hadley, Sananda Frew. Clearly, the weakest portion, the front court was clearly much more vulnerable than your backcourt. The backcourt year one with Terrence Edwards Jr. and Chucky Hepburn. The backcourt year two with Ryan Conwell, Michael Brown Jr. when he's healthy, and even Adrian Woolley. Like, the backcourt was ready to roll. The backcourt was good to go. Where Louisville was just really, really behind the eight ball, especially athletically, defensively, and being able to finish inside, was in the front court. So, Louisville has done a great job of shoring that up. Now, it doesn't mean that they're a finished product by far. I think they're getting close. But I do think that, when you look at what Louisville has right now, when you talk about, you're going to have two of the four of either Flory Badunga, Alvaro Figueres, Gabe Dines, or Obinna Ekezie. You're going to have at least two of those four guys in there pretty much every game, all game long. So when you're talking about three superlative defenders, and don't get it twisted, like, I think Obinna Ekezie Jr. is a young man that is going to have a ways to go offensively just because he's a young guy. He is a reclass guy, even though he originally was in the 2026 class. He had, ended up deciding to kind of move to the 2027 class. Now he's moving back into his original class. I believe he is 17, about to be turned 18, or may already be 18 years old. But I think that this is going to be a young man that's an instant impact guy defensively. I don't think he's going to have any issue being able to come back or come to college basketball and immediately be an impactful player on the backboards. He's going to be impactful running rim to rim. He's going to be impactful defending at the rim. So when you have three superlative defenders, like this, Obinna Ekezie was the MVP of the NBA 100 camp as the defensive MVP. So, you're talking about a guy who's very fundamentally sound. I love kids who have fathers that were big-time players. Obinna Ekezie Sr. Was a standout at Maryland. He was an NBA player, played for the Atlanta Hawks as well as 4 or 5 other NBA teams as well. So he has that pedigree, a lot like Carter Knox has. And I like kids of players that are professionals, former professionals, because they usually come in, they're usually very humble. They're usually hard workers, and usually they just have a air and a demeanor about them of business, like you don't tend to have a lot of problems out of those guys. So Obinna Ekezie is going to be another player that has that. He's going to give you superlative defense from the beginning. So regardless of whether, and I think he has the flexibility, you can start both Flory Badunga and Obinna Ekezie together. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the situation, even though you could. I think that you can go with a very big lineup and have Ekezie, Badunga, and Alvaro Figueres all at the 3, 4, and 5. I think that you will probably see that lineup at times. I think that that's a possibility. I like that possibility. I know a lot of people would push back and say, well, Raashaan, if Figueres is playing at the 3, he can't guard a 3. And my response to that would be, he doesn't have to guard a 3. I think that he can play the 3 offensively and play on the wing on offense, but defensively, I think that you can allow Flory Badunga, who's the best defensive post player in the nation, he can guard a 3. He has the quickness, he has the length, to where I don't think he would have any problem playing out on the wing defensively in that setup. I don't think that would necessarily be a major part of it, but I do think that's something that's an option that's going to be out there. But, when you're going to have guaranteed to have a superlative defender down there in Badunga or Ekezie or Gabe Dines. I mean, Gabe Dines is a guy who, in terms of block percentage, in terms of his ability to have great timing, understanding how to move his feet. He moves his feet very well. Louisville has the best, and look, I don't want to oversell it. I don't want to I'm not prone to a lot of hyperbole, but I will say this. This is the best Louisville front court in my personal opinion, 1 to 4 in terms of 4 and 5. Louisville's ever had. Like, it's the best front court ever, in my personal opinion. And you could talk about some individual players maybe being better than these guys when you talk about Purvis Ellison's, you talk about Wes Unseld, those guys like that. Louisville may have had some individual players that were better, even Gorgie Zhang, honestly. You may talk about better individual all-around players, but when you talk about a foursome, Louisville's never had a foursome like this in terms of size, in terms of skill, in terms of athletic talent. They've never had a team with that. So when you can start with that, I feel like most of the heavy lifting is over with for the most part. I think that Louisville's going to be in a very, very strong spot moving forward from here. So now it's more about just putting the finishing touches on there, right? Like, you have 9 guys right now. Right now you're looking at a starting lineup: Jackson Shelstad, Adrian Woolley, Carter Knox, Alvaro Figueres, Flory Badunga, and you're bringing off the bench London Johnson. You're bringing off Deshane Montgomery, as well as Gabe Dines and Obene Kesey Jr. That is an unbelievable 9 players. You're talking about all 9 of those guys. You could argue why they could be starters. Like, I think that you have 9 guys that have starter level talent. So, now the question becomes, where do you come from there? Where do you go from there? How do you make this, how do you make this better? Oh, hey, thank you so much. It says, smile, happy, blessed day from the Philippines. I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. How do where do you go from here? I think that Louisville, in my personal opinion, with the 9 guys they have right now, first of all, you've spent your money on your big money players. Okay. So I don't think that Louisville's going to go out there and spend a ton of money from here on out. Like, I think that the guys that are going to be your biggest, most expensive players, I think they're there. And the 2 players, in my personal opinion, I think Louisville probably needs to go after, get 2 more guys. And those 2 guys don't necessarily have to be superstars, right? Like, I think that they can go out there and get a shooter. I think that they definitely want to go out there, find the best shooter that you can get. You can get a mid-major guy. You can honestly even get a low-major guy. If you can go find a Rain Smith out there, a guy who's just a knockdown 3-point shooter. Doesn't have to be the most athletic guy. Doesn't have to be a great defender. Doesn't even necessarily need to have the best size in the world. But you go out there and you just get you a knockdown shooter that, with all of the attention that's going to be paid to Knox and Badunga and Kesey, all those guys, and all of the rim pressure that they're going to be able to put inside the paint, somebody's going to be able to get a lot of open shots. So you just get a guy who is just known for knocking down shots. You find that, you get your shooter. I think that's the first spot that Louisville needs to get. The second spot that Louisville needs to get, I think they need to get another ball handler. That's not to disparage anything that I feel that London Johnson can bring to the team. I think that London Johnson is a guy who can play. I think London is a guy who can handle the ball. I think he can play off the ball as well. I would put him into the category of a combo guard, a lot of the same way that I do with Deshane Montgomery. So with having 2 combo guard type players, I would just love to see a pure ball handler, just a pure point guard, a dude that is very strong with the ball, a guy who's known for setting up his teammates, a guy who can come in, run the show, and if he can knock down an open jump shot, I think that's a bonus. I don't think, once again, you need a guy with the best size. I don't think you necessarily need a guy who's just a super athlete. If you have a guy who's a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker, very smart, and very heady with the ball, give me that guy all day long. I think that with what Louisville has, It's more about just putting those finishing touches. So that would be what I would hope to see upcoming next for this recruiting class. And then at that point, that would put you at 11 scholarship players. And if you wanted to go to a number 12 and a number 13 on the team just to fill those spots, then I think that you would take or look for young developmental players that, I don't know, if you want to look for young guys that have local connections and local ties. I've mentioned several times that I would love to see some local guys get an opportunity and get a shot. But I think that if you got some good young local talent to bring in, and honestly, even if you don't bring in local guys, if you just bring in some young talent that you feel has the potential to be good players down the road, I think that you bring those guys in, add them to the mix, let them learn, let them come in and compete in practice. And then if whether they be a little bit on the small side and they need to put on weight, if they're guys that, maybe have potential, but they were playing at maybe the low major level, JUCO level, Division II level, you bring them in because they have potential and just see what you have. Maybe you have somebody that with time and with, off-season workout routine with Eli Foy turns into a player down the road. I think I would love to see two developmental guys. The first 2 years that Louisville has been here, you had Kobe Rogers and Ali Khalifa, who were the 12th and 13th guys, and they were sitting out with injury. This past year, you had Mo Kamara, who was being redshirted, and you didn't have a 13th guy on the bench. So, Louisville has not really made use of anybody outside of those 11 guys, but you've had, injuries to Michael Brown, set him down for a little bit. You had Cason Pryor dealing with his knee injury, of course, putting him out for the season year one, and just kind of struggling to get back into the rotation in year two because of those injuries. To me, with those injury issues being a part of what Louisville basketball's been over the last couple of years, I think that it would be nice if you had those 12th and 13th players be guys with potential, so at least you have those guys there if you need them, that would be awesome. But, getting it back and focusing specifically on Obinna Ekezie, I just want to, if I was to talk about this young man, what he is as a player, I talked about his defense and his ability to come in and impact from day one as a defender. I would say that the best thing I like about him is he knows who he is, right? So a lot of big guys nowadays really, really want to prove that they can handle the ball. They really want to prove that they can step out and shoot the three. They really want to. I don't see that with him. To me, Obinna is a young man that is very grounded in how he plays. He thrives and really looks to be aggressive on the defensive end. He likes to play defense, but offensively, he's a guy who wants to post up. He wants to post strong. He can go with his left hand or his right hand. He is left-handed, interestingly enough. But he wants to post up. He's got a nice little jump hook, offensive boards. And he's a guy who can really go out there and be physical in the paint. And I think that gives you something in terms of a player. This is one of the reasons why I think that Louisville could play with both Ekezie and Badunga together, because I feel like they give you two different things. Like, Flory is not a guy that you throw the ball to on the block and tell him go to work and get a bucket. That's not really what Flory is. Flory is more of a big man who sets the screen, rolls to the basket, and is a lob threat, or a guy who can sit in the dunker spot when you're running, say, screen roll with Shelstad and Alvor for Garris. He can be a guy who is a threat in the dunker spot if there's too much help, and Shelstad can throw it over the top for an easy finish at the rim. The thing about Ekezie is Ekezie can post up, get the ball on the block, go to work, and you can kind of have that big to big passing to where if you throw it to Ikezi at, say, the 8 to 10 mark, he can, pound dribble, kind of, back his man off, bang, bang a couple of times. And if the help comes, you can throw it, big to big, post pass, high low post pass for an easy finish for Badunga. If that help doesn't come, he does have the skills and the ability to get that left hand or right hand hook and finish soft at the rim. So it's very, like, that's the most interesting thing I would say about these forward post players is they all give you something different, right? Like, you have Gabe Dines, who is, would clearly be the fourth post player, but the thing he gives you is superior size, superior length. He has a lot of experience, very good defensive player, very good rim protector, and just a lot of size and quickness for his size. Then you have Ikezi, who's your traditional low post big man who can score with his back to the basket, left hand hook, right hand hook, is going to run the floor effectively and make a lot of plays with his athleticism and his second jumps. Flory Badunga, stalwart defensive player, can defend 1 through 5. Is going to be tough around the ball, trying to dunk everything, uber athletic, great runner, rim to rim, just a tireless worker, a guy who's going to give maximum effort and is just a beast on the block. Wants the ball in the big spots and will make something happen. Even though he's not the most polished low post guy, if you get it to him close to the rim, he's going to find a way to get fouled or, dunk on somebody. And then you have Alvaro Figueres, who is a playmaker in the post. He's a guy who can pick and roll. He can pick and pop. He can handle the ball in the pick and roll. He can be off the ball and pop out, knock down the three. So you have 4 big men that all are very, very good, but all very, very different. And because each one of those guys are really different players, you can mix and match any of those 4 guys together. I don't care if it's Badunga and Figueres. I don't care if it's Badunga and Ikezi. I don't care if it's Ikezi and Figueres or Figueres and Gabe Dines or Dines and Ikezi. I think all those guys can play together. They can all kind of mix and match. And I think the main reason why is because the one thing that all 4 of these guys have, besides just the simple fact that they're big and they're long, and that they're very good defenders outside of Figueres, who is solid defensively, not great, is that they all have great quickness for their size, and I think that's one of the things that really helped Michigan on their way to the national championship this past year, was just the fact that their big men could all move, whether it be a Daymara, whether it be Yaxel Lindenborg, whether it was Morez Johnson. All of their big guys could move their feet. All their big guys could get up and down the court really, really well. And, it wasn't like you had some big plodding, slow center that you have to wait for the big man to get down the court before he can do anything. All these guys can run the floor. And that includes Gabe Dines. That's one of the things that I mentioned during Wake Up 502 on Saturday, was that Gabe Dines is a much better or much quicker than you would expect for a 7'5" guy. That was probably the biggest thing that jumped off the tape to me watching him play, was just the simple fact that he can move his feet. So I think that because you have big guys that are all pretty nimble for their size, it really makes Louisville a tough cover, and it makes them very, very good defensively. I think Louisville should, without a doubt, be one of the best defensive teams in the ACC and the country next year. I really do. So it's exciting. I love everything that Pat Kelsey has done. I love his vision for this team. Are they going to be a little bit different than they have been in past years? Absolutely. I don't think that Louisville's necessarily going to get away from prioritizing the three-point shot. I think that they're still going to encourage their guys to knock down the three-point shot and shoot the three-point shot when they're open. I just think that they're going to become a lot more balanced than they have been. I think that's the most important thing that we will see come out of this is that Louisville's going to be a much more balanced team. But I don't want people thinking that, okay, well, Louisville's got this team. They don't have any shooters. They don't have anybody who can stretch the floor. They're going to basically just try to throw the ball up there and get rebounds and putbacks, and that's all they're going to do. That's not what Louisville's going to be. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, Louisville is going to be a team. Jackson Shelstad can knock down the three. He's a very good three-point shooter. Alvaro Figueres, very good three-point shooter. Both those guys were at or near 40%. Shelstad, he shot 38, almost 39% as a sophomore. Kind of get an incomplete for junior year because of the hand injury. Missed a ton of games. Broke his hand at one point. Tore ligaments in his hand. So shooting numbers weren't there. He only played about 15 games as a junior. So gets an incomplete for that. But Shelstad was a very reliable shooter in his sophomore year, where he was an all-conference level player. He was selected as a first-team All Big Ten preseason pick his junior year before he went down with that injury. But Shelstad is a guy who can knock down the shot. Fulgaris can knock down the three. Carter Knox is a guy who's capable of knocking down the three as well. Adrian Woolley came here from Kennesaw State as a plus 40% three-point shooter. Deshane Montgomery, not that high of a three-point shooter, but 37, 38%, 36%, somewhere in that area. But he's a guy who you have to respect from three as well. I don't think anybody that says that Louisville A can't shoot the ball, or B, they're going to go away from shooting the ball, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that they're going to continue to do that, but I think that they're going to be a lot more selective with when they shoot the ball, because they're going to have guys that can put the proper rim pressure in the post, as well as guys that are very good from the mid-range. Shelstad is a very good mid-range jump shooter. Adrian Woolley, believe it or not, was a very good mid-range jump shooter at Kennesaw State before he got there. Same thing with Deshane Montgomery. Same thing with Carter Knox. Alvaro Figueres is very good in the mid-range as well. You have a lot of guys who can attack you from the mid-range. You have a lot of guys who can attack the rim and get to the rim and score. And I think because you have a lot of guys that can attack at the most interior level as well as from the mid-level, that's going to open up for better and easier shots from the perimeter. So, to me, I think that Louisville's going to be a much more, balanced and deadly team offensively because of these additions that they've made. And I think they're going to be just dangerous defensively. So I don't think that necessarily they're going to have to make a lot of changes to what Pat Kelsey wanted to do in terms of their effort defensively. I think that the defensive scheme was sound, of course, with John Andershet coming over from Campbell, as well as Coach Dixon from Clemson. I think that there will be some slight adjustments, but I don't think necessarily there's going to have to be an overhaul to what Louisville did. I just felt that more or less Louisville tried to employ a lot of physicality defensively. They tried to push out and press out, man-to-man defense to the mid-court lines, but you didn't necessarily have the athletes to do it, right? Like, you had Ryan Conwell, who was a smallish guard with just okay quickness. You had Isaac McNeely, who was a bigger guy, but foot speed necessarily wasn't there. You had Javon Hadley, who was undersized, playing at the 4 spot. And you had Sananda Frew, who was solid, but when push came to shove, especially when he was playing against bigger, more physical guys, was not as tough in the paint as you liked it. So, I think that it wasn't necessarily the scheme that was terrible. I think it was more the guys you were asking to play in that scheme. So I think that Louisville's going to make some slight adjustments defensively and offensively, but I don't think that there's going to be some big fundamental change to who Pat Kelsey is as a coach or what University of Louisville is as a basketball team. I think that they're going to be just slightly better in a lot of ways, but I think that they're going to be similar to what they've seen. Will they go out there and try to shoot 40, 45 threes? Nah, probably not. But instead of shooting 40 threes, hoping to hit 11 or 12 of them, you want to shoot 25 threes and still hit 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 of them. That won't happen every game, but I do think because of the pressure that's going to be generated at the rim, I think that more open shots for solid shooters will generate just about as many three-point makes as Louisville has generated over the first 2 years. I just think that they're going to do it on less shots. And defensively, I think Louisville's going to still continue to press in the half court, man-to-man. I think that's still going to be a big-time part of what Coach Kelsey does. I don't expect that to change. I think they may pressure a little bit more full court. I think that Jackson Shellstad can do that. And with what Akizi and Badunga are as athletes, they can even continue to switch. Like Michigan was super effective with that switching man-to-man where they could switch one through 5. I think that they can probably switch 1 through 4. I don't know if you want Jackson Shellstad, who's only about 6'1", switching onto a post player. But outside of him, I think you can switch pretty much everybody else and feel pretty confident with it, because Deshane Montgomery, superlative defender. Adrian Woolley, superlative defender. Carter Knox, superlative defender. And we've talked ad nauseum about what the big guys can do defensively on the post. So super, super exciting things here. Super, super exciting things to come moving forward. Sorry that this came so late. Got caught up doing some things. Hopefully want to catch up with Romy Bean, a.k.a. Roman Kelly, whether it be run-in with Roman on the Mike Rutherford show or get him on Breakdown 502 when the next commitment comes, or when we get to talk more about this Louisville basketball team. But Louisville, huge commitment today. Obinna Akizi Jr. got it in. He's in the fold. I cannot wait to see what happens next. This is Raashaan Myers for Wake Up 502, 96.1 FM, 1450 AM, Big X Sports Radio, WXVW, and we'll be back. And like we always like to close every show, without struggle, there is no progress. Obinna Akizi Jr., welcome to the Ville, and I'm out. Peace.